again, baseball lovers. Jason with you as we are doing our World Series recap. An amazing 7-game series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. And I am joined by my cohorts, Nico and Bruce. And we are going to talk about what we just saw in that 7 games. And, you know, it was a really good series. And if you're a baseball fan and didn't have a dog in the fight, hopefully you enjoyed watching just some really good back and forth, exciting moments, a lot of tension, of course, down to the wire in Game 7, extra innings, inches away the Toronto Blue Jays were from taking home their first World Series since '93. But the Los Angeles Dodgers, they become the first team to repeat since the 2000 or the 99-2000 Yankees, and the first National League team to repeat since the Big Red Machine of the mid-'70s. So with that, I want to bring in the best analysts in baseball, Nico and Bruce, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we just saw. Nico, we'll start with you. Just kind of your overall thoughts. 7 games, Dodgers, Jays, just, you know, where do you stand after watching that great series?
Well, I thought after the American League Championship Series that we wouldn't see anything come close, but I think it was actually even more dramatic and exciting. You know, there's so much highs and lows with both teams. Before the series started, I picked the Dodgers in 7. I think Jason had Jays in 7. I think Bruce had Dodgers in 5. But look, it's kind of what I expected. I thought this Jays team was going to emulate the same team they've been all postseason, a team that was going to fight you, you know, until the very end. And it was as much drama and excitement and thrill and agony as I can remember in a very long time. You know, recency bias, it's one of the best Game 7s I've seen in a long time. Off the top of my head, I haven't seen anything that exciting since maybe 2016 when the Cubbies pulled it off in games. I believe it was Game 7, yeah. But, you know, from the stars to the guys that, you know, nobody's heard of, I thought that it was just an amazing Game 7. You know, there was moments where you said to yourself, there's no way that the Jays were going to let this one go. And there's no way the Dodgers were going to, you know, not give up a fight. And, you know, seeing that top of the 9th inning where we're all looking at Shohei Ohtani in the hole. And we're thinking, you know, is Ohtani going to come up big and sort of crush Toronto's dreams? And it was Miguel Rojas, of all people, who came up. And I can't help but that's what makes us so romantic about the game is when you have a guy, a 36-year-old Miguel Rojas, who is practically a bench coach next to Dave Roberts throughout the regular season, comes up with the swing of his life to tie the game in the 9th inning to eventually get the Dodgers to score another run with Will Smith's home run. And shout out to Yamamoto, an absolute dog who pitched Game 6 and comes out in relief in Game 7. It took every bit of that amazing roster, that Dodgers team, to get past the Blue Jays. And for the Jays fans, man, that is crushing. It was
brutal.
I couldn't imagine being a Blue Jays fan in that moment. And it's going to be tough in the coming days and weeks, but they can look back and say, you know, it was a hell of a run. And I think a promising future.
Having lived through Game 7 in 1991 as a Braves fan, I can tell you it's brutal. It was probably more brutal for me at the time as a 14-year-old because you feel every emotion so much magnified. But yeah, today was probably a very dark day for a lot of Blue Jays fans. Bruce, your thoughts, man?
So I'm going to jump on the Game 7 idea because this is the stuff that really excites me and gets me charged up about the game of baseball is this idea, and I'll criticize it on Facebook and all that stuff, but this idea that we can point to a moment in time that defines an entire season for a group of not 25 guys. It's the entire organization, it's their fan base, it's everything that, you know, the Blue Jays have put into the entire season. And whether it's the ball stuck under the fence, whether it's inches, whether should IKF have led further off of third, should all of these questions that are going to just haunt Blue Jays fans and the Blue Jays front office and everybody involved in the organization for the entire winter. We talked about how long the off season is. There are two people that I can think of right now, or three maybe, where the off season is going to be longer than anyone else. Orion Kirkering, who I can't even, I don't want to talk about what he must be going through. But then Jeff Hoffman and IKF questioning that pitch or that moment, or, you know, it's just what the game does. It's what the game is. It is the heart and the soul of the game. And, you know, Jason, you mentioned 1991, and that is my favorite Game 7 of all time.
Yeah.
You know, because of the performances that went into that game. Well, no, I'm just talking about the game. But, you know, if the Braves had won,
purely from a baseball standpoint, it was. Yeah, purely from a baseball standpoint, it was magic. It was baseball magic, and I won't deny that.
I love 0-0, 1-1, 2-2. This tie ball game going to extra innings.
Veteran pitcher versus young hurler. It was,
and yeah, all that excitement, and we saw that a little bit last night. Although it ended up Yamamoto, but we saw Yesevich come in, and then Hoffman comes in, and just all of this confluence of what baseball is into one package. But Blue Jays fans, or no, I'm going to get that in a second. The other one this reminded me of, because of the way the pitching was stacked by the Dodgers, was the 2001 Diamondbacks-Yankees series, where the Diamondbacks were just throwing everything against the wall to win that game. And then they won it in such dramatic fashion. And that's kind of how I felt about last night. But Blue Jays fans, let's not forget 2014, when the Giants beat the Royals 3-2 in Game 7 in a very dramatic Game 7. And then who wins the World Series in 15? The Royals do.
The Royals, yeah.
So don't lose heart, Jays fans. I still think you're not going to do it. I didn't think you could. But they have a good core. Vladimir Guerrero earned every dollar of that contract that he's gonna start and he's gonna take on. You know, he became the guy that the Blue Jays wanted him to be. And I don't remember who in the front office said this on the radio, but they said it was so important to sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to that contract because they wanted Canadian kids to have a poster to put up in their room of somebody in a Blue Jays uniform that they have not had for who knows how long. And they have it now. And Guerrero showed up. He did his job. He led that team. He was exciting to watch. And as much as I criticized his attitude, it wasn't there. He just went out and he hammered away and he played baseball and he was fantastic. And if I feel sorry for anyone whose name isn't Don Mattingly on that Blue Jays roster, it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because he put everything out there and he had a great series.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, a lot of great points there, guys. I agree, Bruce, with everything you said. The thing that I, look back on, and this is going to sound really obvious, but the thing that eases the pain of 1991 is the fact the Braves did win one in 1995 during that span. And so for Jays fans, like you said, to overcome this feeling, the only way to do it is they come back and win one. And I don't want to be the Debbie Downer because I've been on the Jays bandwagon all season, not to this extent. I didn't think they'd get to the series. I'm trying to be honest. But, I don't know. This felt like I don't want to say a one-shot deal, but it takes a lot to get to this point. It takes a lot. And that's why I do think you have to take your hats off to the Dodgers. I'm going to say something's going to piss a lot of people off here. And I don't really mean it the way it's going to sound, but I don't think the better team won this series. I felt like, or at least during this series, I felt like the Jays overall outplayed the Dodgers. And it came down to a couple of plays, and credit to the Dodgers. Will Smith hits the big home run. Miguel Rojas, and I think we talked about this in our World Series preview, guys, that it would probably be some guy. There's always some guy in the World Series that feels like that you don't expect that comes through with a big hit, a big knock. I didn't have Rojas on the radar. He wouldn't have been the guy I chose. But, yeah, for Jays fans, this is just, I don't want to twist the knife here because I'm not anti-Toronto at all, but, man, this has got to hurt. You were you needed a medium fly ball to the outfield from Varsho, and you're World Series champions. And it went from that moment to heartbreak. It seemed like in an eye flash, just like that. So I hope you're right, Bruce. For the Jays fans' sake, for the young Jays fans that experienced that heartbreak last night, I hope they get another shot. Hope it's not against my Braves if they win, but I hope they get another shot. And man, we've seen some heartbreak. I was thinking too, as you said that about and I can't pronounce his name. Is it Kirkring?
Kirkring.
Kirkring.
Yeah.
He's kind of. I know that won't be forgotten in Philly anytime soon. But with the way this World Series went, I feel like some of the spotlight is off of him now, at least.
Well, the Phillies chatter is all about, thank goodness we didn't have Hoffman. At this
Yeah,
point.
Hoffman's going to take the brunt of the offseason punishment here, and
That's what Phillies fans do. They deflect and they say,
Yeah.
well, thank goodness we
It
didn't have
could have been
Hoffman
worse.
because he got to the World Series and lost.
Yeah.
We didn't get that far.
Yeah, tough stuff. And the Dodgers. I mean, we got to talk about the Dodgers back to back, first team to do it in 25 years, basically. And we talk about the payroll. We can talk about the looming fight that's coming with that, and are the Dodgers the poster child for what's wrong with baseball? But the fact is, on the field, they got it done. I didn't think they were going to do it this year. I really thought it was just too difficult to repeat in baseball right now. So my hat is off. My hat is off to them. I'll try to edit that one out. My hat is off to the Dodgers for showing the fight. They could have folded. It was 3-0. Bichette hits the home run. The place is going nuts. And then they could have folded at the end of the game, and Rojas gets the hit, and then Will Smith comes up big. So all in all, hats off to the Dodgers, regardless of the situation. You guys' thoughts on back-to-back champs?
I think so. So it's really important. I think so. One, I didn't pick the Dodgers to win the World Series. I said they'd be out in the division series, and actually, I still think they should have been. But we can talk about the Phillies and their bumblings all day long if we want to. But look at the heroes for the Dodgers. So Yamamoto was absolutely fantastic, right? I mean, no one can say he wasn't. Look beyond Yamamoto in the World Series. These are not those. This is not Shohei Ohtani's spotlight.
Yeah.
This is not Mookie Betts spotlight. Although Betts had a couple of big hits. I'm not gonna, I'm not throwing shade at Mookie Betts. Freddie Freeman didn't hit the big home run in this World Series to win Game 7. That didn't happen. Rojas did it, right? And the bullpen was actually pretty good when it needed to be. And look at Sasaki, who's not making a whole lot of money, who took that bullpen and strung it together for the Dodgers. These are actually not the guys making all that money for the Dodgers that were the ones that were the difference makers. Yeah, the big guys are certainly the foundation. No one's going to argue that. But the reality is that you had guys like Miguel Rojas and this core of other guys stringing together hits, putting together good defense, throwing really, really solid innings for the Dodgers. And I'm going to argue that the better team absolutely did win, because the only way I saw the Jays winning is if they could continue to be that fighting team that never gave up, and they did that. Yeah. The ball just didn't bounce their way when it came time for that thing to happen for them. I think the Jays still have a bright future here, because I don't think the American League East is going to be any better next year than it was this year. I'm not sure the American League as a whole is going to be any better unless, does Kyle Schwarber end up in the American League? Are they moving these big free agents into the American League? I don't think they are. I think the balance of power stays in the National League for a little while still. Aaron Boone is still the manager of the Yankees, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So the Yankees aren't going to be better than they are now. I think the Blue Jays have the right formula, as do the Mariners. I mean, the Mariners have the right formula. The Mariners are, a piece or two short. But at the end of the day, I do think the Blue Jays, could still be a force next year and be there at the end. I don't necessarily see it as a one and done with the soul and the heart that they showed this year. If they can keep that going next year, they're still going to win 90 plus games and be there in the end, because that's really what got them there this year. Their pitching wasn't that great. Their offense wasn't that great. They were streaky. They came up big when they had to. If they can do that, they can still be there next year, especially if they add a piece or two in the offseason.
Yeah, what would be great for baseball is to have another one of those rivalries where maybe the Jays and Mariners have a battle back and forth for 2-3 seasons, like Yankees Royals late 70s, early 80s. Braves Mets, Phillies Braves, whatever the rivalry is. It would be great to have that kind of the same two teams meeting each other and having these epic battles. Yeah, and I want to make it clear, when I say I thought the better team didn't win, I think the team that played better, maybe that's the way I should say it. Overall, I thought the Dodgers were a better team. I just felt like the Jays let this one get away. Like they
Yeah.
could have won this series. Nico, your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. I agree with that sentiment, Jason. I do think the Jays, again, maybe it's just the eye test by watching these games because, like Bruce was saying, a lot of guys in that Dodgers lineup struggled. Otani didn't do
They
a
hit
whole lot.
191, Nico. They hit 191.
Right. And Mookie was struggling. He was vocal about his struggles. And there was discussions about he might get moved on in the lineup. Freddie Freeman wasn't the Freddie of last October. So I think the Dodgers, it's a strange thing, man. It has, I think if you take out the Yamamoto factor, I think the Blue Jays were, I don't want to say they were the better team. I think they played better throughout the course of the series.
If you
I know
take
that, that's a
Yamamoto out
silly
of
thing.
off that team, Nico, Jays win in 6.
Yeah, I mean Yamamoto was the MVP, deservingly so. I mean he was the stopper for the Dodgers. I mean he did it in with his starts and in relief, which is really amazing for a young man like that with his lack of experience. But a couple of things, man. I think whoever coming into Game 7, you knew whoever was going to lose the game, it was going to be just a gut punch. Whether it was the Jays or the Dodgers. But I do want to give Dave Roberts and the Dodgers organization credit. These guys, there's a lot of superstars there. There's boatloads of talent. There's no selfishness on the team. They're all bought in. Mookie, Freddie, they're all just trying to win. They're there to win. And I thought that Dave Roberts' decision with taking out Edman from center field and putting Pages there, and then going in with Miggy Rojas, the Game 6 and 7. I mean, it was the difference. That deep fly ball that Clement hit. When I watched it live, I thought the game was over. I thought Kike was just behind on it.
Yeah.
And then here comes Pages, who was, an elite defensive center fielder who was pulled because of his offensive struggles, comes out of nowhere and just catches the ball. I don't know if Kike Hernandez catches that ball. And then, Rojas made a great play at second base. Maybe an elementary play, but, still in the heat of the moment, he fielded the ground ball. He threw it to, home. I mean, man, the Jays were, like Jason said, they just needed a fly ball or a weak, infield ground ball to get through second and third or short and third. They were so close and it just didn't happen. You just can't help but think sometimes, man, the baseball gods are just not in your favor. I mean, it was like they let one go there. And I agree with Jason on this one. I think they played better, consistent baseball. I mean, Vladdy was sensational. I think Clement had tied the all-time record for the most hits in the World Series. Is that right? I mean, Varsho and Barger, they just put on a show, and somehow they just couldn't get one more run than the Dodgers. Yeah. So I think it's a testament to what the Dodgers have built beyond that star-studded lineup and that, those guys that we talk about. Just the collective effort, man. And you just feel bad for the Jays, whether you're impartial or not. It's a tough way to go out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long.
Here I think is what the big difference there was. Nico, you're saying about that one hit, that one moment.
Yeah,
the Jays, and I mentioned something about that earlier. But I think for me, when I stepped back from the emotion of watching it live, and looked over those 7 games, the difference between these two teams wasn't consistency, which was unfortunate because, like you said, the Jays bring that consistency and they bring that heart, and that's why they made it there. The difference here for me was pitching. The Blue Jays couldn't keep the Dodgers from getting the big hit or the moment when they needed to, and the Dodgers did consistently. Yep. The Dodgers pitching staff was either in it and on it, or, the Blue Jays had control of the game, and that's just how the game went. But when the Blue Jays didn't have control of the game, the Dodgers pitching was simply shut down pitching where the Blue Jays weren't. Because even look at Game 7, you had so Otani didn't do the job, right? But then you saw Snell, you saw Glasnow, you saw Sasaki, you saw these guys came in, and no, they weren't perfect, but they came in and did the job. Whereas the Blue Jays on the other side, everybody they brought in really didn't. You know, Yesevich dropped the ball, not dropped the ball, but Yesevich didn't hold them where he could, where he'd been great before. And every pitcher that they brought in just seemed to fumble. Bassett fumbles. And that to me was the difference between the two, is this higher level of pitching excellence. I'm going to credit that Dodgers, the whole pitching coaching staff, not just Pryor, the whole staff, for how they handle guys like Yamamoto and Ohtani, these guys who are not your average run-of-the-mill major league guys. And they've done such a good job with it that it really came through. I have to put a caveat in here, though, that most of these guys didn't even throw 100, 120 innings this season, though. So we can't forget that either. Whereas on the other side, the Blue Jays did.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would say, to your point too, Bruce, if you think about it, there were two moments in this game where the Dodger pitchers absolutely had to have a ground ball, and both times they got it.
Yes, they did.
Marshall's at bat, and then Kirk's at bat. Kirk in that situation, I know he's got 2 strikes, and your natural tendency as a hitter is to protect the plate, but you can't chase a pitch that creates a ground ball, man. You'd be better off striking out there, than hitting that ground ball. Give the
you
next
don't want to hit the double play. You
Yeah.
don't want to hit the double play.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but credit to your point, Bruce, credit to the pitchers. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to induce the ground ball, and they got it both times, and it turned out to be the difference in the game. So, guys, your thoughts overall? I know it's fresh, recency bias, as Nico mentioned, but where does this World Series fall for you in the great World Series you've seen? I think the only thing this series lacked, making it maybe a top 5 series for me, is a walk-off hit in Game 7. Like, had somebody hit a home run to win the Game 7 in the bottom of the 9th or 10th, that's the only thing. You had the 18-inning game, you had the Freddie Freeman walk-off, you had the back and forth, the Game 7. Where does this one rank for you, Bruce? We'll start with you. Where does this rank for you? You don't have to rank it 1 to 10, but how does it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I can pick 1 through 10. It's definitely top 5 in my lifetime for sure. No doubt about that. I mean, and it's the ironic piece of this is that people will talk about money, and all of these things. And my favorite World Series tended to be those 90 Yankees teams and things like that. Just because I like a team that goes out and gets the job done.
Yeah.
As much as I like to see a series like this, where you don't know what's going to happen, and there's no one who's taking control of the series. They're both exciting in their own way. This is definitely top 5. The only reason I won't put it higher than, say, 5th or 4th or 5th for me is I didn't have a horse in this race or anyone to root for, so I wasn't necessarily as emotionally invested as some other people might have been. But I will say that anyone who doubts the veracity and the passion of baseball in Canada is clearly dead wrong. Those fans in Toronto were absolutely behind that team. They showed up. They paid those whatever stupid prices for those tickets that I cannot believe people pay. And if I told you what I paid for the World Series in 2022, it would be absolutely embarrassing compared to these tickets.
Well, they got that socialized healthcare, Bruce. They can afford it.
I don't know. And then, you got LA too.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Nico, how do you view this series among the ones you're a little bit younger than Bruce and I, but among the ones you've watched, how do you view this series?
It's definitely top 5 for me. The other ones that stick out as far as the Game 7 factor and history, the Jays and their long drought. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the 16 Cubbies and Indians was one of the most memorable ones, and the drama and excitement and anxiety, heart attack that occurred there. I think 2019 Nationals Astros is another one that was a great series. But for me personally, man, again, recency bias, watching the highlights all day today and going through all those moments, like Bruce mentioned, all those little moments that happened and didn't happen. It's up there for me. It's either 2 or 3. It probably would have been higher if the Jays would have prevailed. Not that I was cheering for, either or. I sort of enjoyed the moment that Rojas had there in the top of the 9th. I don't know. I felt so good for the guy. I don't know something happened there for me where I just was happy to see him hit a home run, being indifferent with the outcome. but I think it's right up there, man. 2004 Red Sox wasn't exciting outside of the ALCS because obviously they swept the Cardinals after defeating the Yankees. So I don't know, man. It was super exciting. It really, compared to last year, let's say, which wasn't a very competitive series, I enjoyed it, and especially when, like you guys, man, I didn't have a dog in the fight, so like I was just kind of watching, and I felt bad for both fan bases and moments. Not so much the Dodgers. My heart was with the Jays fans all night, man. I just kept thinking, like, I'm like, man, they can't blow this, can they? Like, Bo Bichette hits the 3-run home run. They got a 3-run lead. Mad Max is doing his thing. I'm like, the Jays aren't going to blow this. But then the back of your head, you're like, man, this Dodgers team is different. They're going to come back and they're going to fight back, and we're going to be in for some serious, theater come here in the latter innings, and it happened, and it's up there for sure.
How about Max Scherzer?
Yeah.
In this World Series,
Yeah.
2 very, very strong starts in what could be his swan song. He hasn't announced it. He hasn't said. But if this is how he goes out, aside from not winning the World Series, he went out looking really good.
He did. Yeah, I thought there for a while he may turn in a performance for the ages, but he gave them enough. He gave them enough to get the job done. They just didn't hold it. So, yeah, I'll put it up there. I mean, I've watched a lot of World Series. I think of 86, 91, 97, 01. I forget about the year, the Cardinals Rangers series, David Freese, that series, Royals Giants, of course, Cubs, Indians. So there's a lot of great ones. I put this one up there. I'd have to really think about it long and hard, but I do think about, as a Braves fan, Freddie Freeman, who left Atlanta as what I would consider a probable Hall of Famer. And now, championships don't seem to matter quite as much to Hall of Fame voters in MLB as maybe they do in the other sports. But, 3 World Series titles now, a couple of big home runs. People forget him. He did have a walk-off home run in game 3 in that marathon. I think he cemented himself up there at least in the first ballot conversation, if not solid first ballot. But as a Braves fan, that's going to hurt if he goes in with a Dodgers cap on. I got to tell you right now, it's going to sting a little bit, but I really wouldn't blame him at this point. So,
look, the baseball writers love guys that you like, and everybody likes Freddie Freeman.
Absolutely.
He's got the backstory to go with it with his son, and I'm not saying that is something that he should be pimping out, but it exists and it's there, and you can't deny last year's drama that was surrounding him. And then you've got the World Series championships and just the whole story, the romance behind it. The baseball writers love that stuff.
Absolutely.
Unless he falls off a cliff performance-wise, I don't see him not being a first ballot guy with his postseason performance, and then his just regular. Aside from, he didn't have a great regular season this year, but aside from that, Freddie's Freddie.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great story. It's one of those things that makes you romantic about baseball. So it'll make a great story for him one day as he goes into Cooperstown, regardless of whether it's first ballot or not. So, guys, appreciate it. We were up against a hard stop on this recording, but great World Series to call it a season. And of course, we're going to stick with you guys through the off season. We'll have episodes and get you through the hot stove season and the silly season of managerial changes, and guide you back to spring training 2026, which we'll all look forward to. Bruce, Nico, appreciate you guys for joining again, and appreciate the season. We had a really good season on the podcast, and I just appreciate you guys chiming in and contributing. Bruce, it was great to meet you briefly in person this season. Nico, hopefully next year we'll be able to get together as well. And guys, so I encourage you listeners out there to follow us on the Facebook page, continue to keep up with us there. Also on the RAB podcast page. Check out our merchandise on tpublic.com at Romantic About Baseball. And check out the Fans Journey podcast series that we have on the same feed as this one, as we were walking through. Having a lot of fun hearing the stories from you guys. We just put one up with an interview with one of our listeners, Mike Wilson, who has traveled the globe. He's seen baseball from a lot of different perspectives. So I encourage you to check that out as well. Guys, appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Everybody, we'll see you at the ballpark in 2026. Have a good one.
Katie was baseball mad, had the fever and had it bad. Just to root for the hometown crew, every blue, Katie Blue. On a Saturday, her young beau called to see if she'd like to go to see a show, but Miss Kate said no. I'll tell you what you can do.